Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. Today we are going to learn about chapter 11, immunity. There are two subtopics in this chapter which are 11.1 immune response and 11.2 development of immunity. For learning outcome of 11.1, A. Define immunity and state the types of immunity. B. Describe the general structure of antibodies and state the classes based on its structure. And C. State the roles of a lymphoid organ in immunity such as thymus, spleen, tonsil, lymph nodes, and bone marrow. Immunity. Definition for immunity is ability of organism to resist illness or infections caused by pathogens or foreign substances. This slide shows the types of immunity that will be discussed more in 11.2 during tutorial. Definition for antibody or immunoglobulin, Ig, is a protein secreted by plasma cells that bind to a particular antigen or produced by immune system due to the presence of antigen. Structure of antibody, which consists of 4 polypeptide chain, which are 2 identical of light chain, short polypeptide chain, and 2 identical of heavy chain, long polypeptide chain that held together by disulfide bridge. Antibody is Y in shape. Each chain consists of constant region and variable region. The amino acid sequence varies extensively from one antibody to another, and the variable region of both heavy and light chain combine together forming antigen binding site. This antigen binding site binds with specific antigen due to the presence of variable region. There are 5 classes of antibody, which are IgG, IgA, IgM, IgE, and IgD. Now we go to the primary importance for each classes of antibody. We start with IgG. The primary importance for IgG is act as marker that stimulate phagocytosis by macrophage, involved in secondary immune response, and protect against bacteria, viruses, and toxin. The second class for antibody is IgA. The primary importance are prevent bacteria and viruses from attaching to mucous membranes, which this IgA act as mucosal antibody. The second primary importance for IgA is passive immunity on nursing infants, means that IgA found in breast milk. And the third one for primary importance in IgA is act as first line of defense. IgA found in saliva, mucus, and tears. The third class of antibody is IgM, which involved in primary immune response and act as receptor on lymphocyte surface. If you look at the structure of IgM, it can bind to many antigens at once, means that IgM effective in clumping viruses or bacteria that promote agglutination reaction. Primary importance for class IgE is involved in allergic reaction, means that IgE will trigger the release of histamine from basophil. The last class for antibody is IgD, IgD will act as receptor for antigen on B cell surface. Second, involved in activation of lymphocyte B cell. And the last primary importance of IgD is involved lymphocyte proliferation and differentiation into memory B cell and plasma cell. The next two slides is about the role of lymphoid organ. There are 5 lymphoid organs in immunity, such as thymus, spleen, tonsil, lymph nodes, and bone marrow. Number 1, lymph nodes. Lymph nodes is an organ located along lymph vessel. The function of lymph nodes is to filter lymph because contains cells that attack against viruses and bacteria. The second lymphoid organ is thymus. Thymus is a small organ in thoracic cavity. And thymus is a site for T cell maturation, which lymphocyte from bone marrow will migrate to thymus and mature into T cell. The third organ of lymphoid is bone marrow. Bone marrow is a site of stem cells divide and differentiate into lymphocyte. Site for B cell maturation means that the lymphocyte that matured in bone marrow will develop as B cell. The next lymphoid organ is tonsil. Tonsil located in mouth or pharynx that protect against bacteria and other foreign agents entering from mouth and nose. The last lymphoid organ is spleen. Spleen is the largest mass of lymphoid tissue, and the function of spleen is to filter blood by removing the worn out erythrocyte and platelets. And spleen also act as reservoir of lymphocyte and plasma cell. The definition for antigen is foreign substances that trigger or induce specific immune response. There are 2 types of antigen, which are foreign antigen, known as non-self. For example, is bacteria and virus. And second is self-antigen, which are MHC, major histocompatibility complex. There are 3 types of antigen-antibody interaction. Number 1, neutralization. Antibody attached to binding site of virus or bacteria. Antibody will coat them and make them ineffective and cannot bind with host cell. Antigen-antibody complex is engulfed by macrophage. Second, opsonization. Antibody bound to antigen on pathogen, and the macrophage or neutrophils will promote phagocytosis. Third, activation of complement system and pore formation. There are 5 steps in this activation of complement system and pore formation. Number 1, antibody bind to antigen and forming antigen-antibody complex. Number 2, the binding of antibody to antigen activate the complement proteins. The activated complement proteins will generate membrane attack complex. Number 4, formation of pore in plasma membrane of bacteria. And the last one, the water and ion enter the cell, result in the swell and lysis of bacteria. For 11.2, development of immunity, the learning outcome is state the 2 types of immune response. There are two types of immune response, which are the humoral immune response and cell-mediated immune response. In the humoral immune response, B cell will make antibodies which bind to antigens in body fluid. These antibodies will destroy the antigens by using one of the several mechanisms in types of antigen-antibody mechanism, which are neutralization, opsonization, and activation of complement system and pore formation. While in cell-mediated immune response, T cell will bind to the infected body cell and make the cell become lysis. The definition of humoral immune response is an immune response involving production of antibodies by B lymphocyte or B cell that defends against free bacteria, toxin, and viruses in the body. Definition for cell-mediated immune response. Immune response by T lymphocyte or T cell directly attack the cell that carries specific antigen. This type of immune response defends against bacteria and viruses within infected cell or transplant tissue cell or cancer cell that known as non-self. The detail of these two types of immune response will be discussed more in tutorial class. That's all. Hope you will gain some new knowledge from this topic.